name is Lancelot. I'm big and strong and hot. Occasionally I do some things that I should not. I want to be a knight, but I don't like to fight. I'm rather scared I may simply run away.
This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Our guest is, by his own admission, the 6th nicest Monty Python, and he's also responsible for a huge Broadway hit. Here to introduce him, the 2nd nicest co-host on Theater Talk, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Together, Eric, we're going to make a charming pair.
I think so.
Welcome to Theater Talk, and congratulations on the success of Spamalot, which has just opened at the Schubert Theater on Broadway. Script by Eric Idle, music and lyrics by Eric Idle with John Dupre. Entire Broadway production conceived by Eric Idle. You've managed to put together a show where you don't need anyone but yourself.
Well, it's not entirely true. I did need the Pythons. You know, I did rather use their work slightly to lean on.
And they, we went to the opening just last night, in fact, as we're taping this today, and all of you came together, all the Pythons. First reunion in quite a while?
7 years.
Really?
It was really touching and emotional and very sweet and lovely. And in fact, the whole reason to do this was in order to seduce the Pythons to get back together on stage for 5 minutes.
Did you have any trouble getting them to agree to this project? I know you've been working on it for a number of years now.
I've been on it 3 years, but I thought it was a long shot. I hoped that I could persuade them to do it. And I thought, well, the best way to persuade them is I made a book, and I wrote the book, and then I did about 10 songs with my partner John Dupre, and we recorded them and we sent them a CD, including the song that goes like this.
Yeah.
And they just cracked them up. They laughed and made them happy, and they could suddenly see the show, and they said, yeah, they really liked it, and 2 of them were tempted to become involved.
Which 2?
Cleese and Gilliam, both were tempted. And then they had a meeting and a discussion. They said, no, let's leave it to Eric, which I thought was the smartest thing they did.
Yeah.
Because we'd still be trying to meet.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was a very smart and clever decision, and they left it to me, and they turned up last night and were really wonderful.
And haven't you always had an arrangement among yourselves that if one wants to do a project, another one can veto it and it doesn't go anywhere?
Everybody can veto all of our projects, all of our work. We have this killer veto, which is like the UN, sort of. And, but the other thing is that when we do a project, we always have to have one of us involved, so we oversee it for quality control and make sure it's really Python.
Right, right. Why The Holy Grail to be made into a musical? Why not Life of Brian, Meaning of Life, some of the other movies?
I don't think America's ready for a stage full of people on crosses singing Always Look on the Bright Side. I may be wrong. I could have been reading the newspapers wrongly and incorrectly. 3 years. I don't think so. Ever.
So it's never in the cards, that those.
I don't know. I'm not ready to be shot by some people just at the moment. And I think the thing about the Grail is it's the most popular thing we do. It's like far and away the thing everybody knows,
right.
Even of the TV and all that. They all know the Grail. Kids love it. 10-year-olds love it and adore it. And it's been in the consciousness of America. And when I tour around America, I do Python. So I know what they respond to and what they know. And when we did the Greedy Bastard tour, for example, we would do the Taunter, and they would join in.
Yeah.
It was like a liturgy.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, they really are ready to do, you know, they really know the Grail. So there's an element of the familiar, which is very reassuring when you see a show. Plus, you know, some new stuff.
Well, you get that now on Broadway. I mean, even the opening night, people sitting next to me were, they know line by line these famous scenes from the movie.
The knee people or whatever come out
Yeah,
and go,
exactly.
oh, yes.
Exactly, recognition, applause.
Yeah.
Was there ever a concern, though, that you do Monty Python routines without you guys, since they're so identified in our minds? And, you know, growing up, I remember my sort of oddball friends in high school were always reenacting these routines, and they were never quite as funny as when you guys did them.
It's true, but the fact is that everybody can do them because you've made the groove, you know, so they can fall. Hank Azaria can do it actually differently, as well as you get a ghost of John Cleese and Hank Azaria on top of it, which I think is really nice. And again, it's what I discovered from being on the road. I mean, I toured America twice. In 2000, I went on I took a show called Eric Idle Exploits Monty Python on the road.
You're honest.
I'm honest about it.
About
and I took a bunch of Americans who played the sketches with me.
Oh, really?
And it's just the
worked.
same because the comedy material is funny.
Yeah.
You know, that's the basic. The writing is funny.
But the thing I loved more about the show is the way you have woven in this wonderful musical theater level with these songs you've written which refer to musical theater. Yes, idioms of musical theater.
Well, that goes the thing about Python, really. Python is always a show that recognizes what form it's in.
Right.
If you do a book, it recognizes it's a Python book. If you do a TV, it reminds you that you're watching a television. If you do a movie, it reminds you you're in a movie. And so the same thing as I realized when I took it to Broadway, that it would have to recognize the fact that it was a Broadway musical. And I'm just thrilled that we managed to find, in the rehearsal process actually, the second act, which revealed what the show should be about and how it would finish and accumulate. Because the Python film just stops. The police come on and stop it, you know. And so
that's because you ran out of money when you were filming it or something?
Well, we did run out of money because we were ending with a big battle, and we could only afford 20 starving students from the University of Glasgow, and we shot them in 18 different directions. And there's this huge battle scene building up, and what are we going to do? Well, I said, well, we'll bring the police in and stop it. And that was a perfect end for a movie, but it's not the perfect end for a musical. You know, you got to sort of finish and...
You found this wonderful whipping boy in Andrew Lloyd Webber, I believe, that you're spoofing the sung-through musical. Yeah.
Well, wait, the song you sent to the other Pythons that they approved is the song that goes like this, and that is
yes, but that didn't
a spoof
start
of
off
any Andrew Lloyd Webber ballad.
It includes Andrew Lloyd Webber, but it wasn't started off as a direct spoof of Andrew Lloyd Webber. I was with my partner, John Dupre, and we suddenly got inspired, and he's playing some chords, and I suddenly went, once in every show, there comes a song like this. It starts off, and he started playing along. Yeah. And we had the tape recorder running, and we improvised the entire song.
Really?
Right there.
Just through.
Right then. It was like an improv bit. And it just... So, and then, of course, when you put it on stage, and you bring a boat on, and you put
chandelier,
and then we lower the chandelier, of course it becomes about that. But really, it was about that sort of Broadway way of talking, you know, and we're doing a musical. So it was more generic and has become more particular in the production.
Now, one of Andrew Lloyd Webber's friends called me up when I went to see the show in Chicago, and I wrote about it because I love this
friends?
Not Tim Rice.
Name them.
This fellow called me up.
One of the two friends.
One of the two friends, his wife, called me up, and she said, you know, I want you to know, they can spoof Andrew all they want to, but Andrew's going to get some money out of this because he and Tim Rice were investors in the movie. Is this true?
I didn't know that, but I hope so, because the movie was originally, the investors were Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Genesis, and I'm glad to say that if he did that, you know, I hope it's like you make fun of things because they're there and because they're the biggest things. You can't make fun of nothing. So, you know, if you're doing a Broadway show, you have to also make fun of things that are on Broadway. That's Python. You know what I mean? And I'm sure he's very sensitive about this.
You can't avoid Andrew. No, but I
think he's got enough not to worry.
Oh, yes, I think so.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But no, it's a real highlight of the show, that song. I mean, it's really funnier. We love Forbidden Broadway in this show, but it's as good, or if not better than anything I've ever seen in Forbidden Broadway, spoofing that type of big ballad, melodramatic, gothic musical.
You know, it's also very Python. It's because it talks about itself. It says, where is the song that goes like this? And she says, this is the song that goes, oh, yes, it is. So that's actually very Python. It isn't just about Broadway.
Right.
It's like recognizing itself.
You keep saying very Python, very Python. I mean, how would you define that beyond saying it's what Monty Python does?
Well, it's the sort of way that we look at things. It's a sort of silliness, but has its own logic. It can't be illogical. It's a nonsensical logic. So it sticks to its own parameters, which makes it appealing to the mind. It's not just scattershot. It has a sort of way of looking at things which are topsy-turvy and silly, really.
But within that topsy-turviness, there's a logical discussion going on. I mean, I think of the scene of the two watchtower guides about the birds flying.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there must always be a logic, it seems to me, and that's what the English nonsense is very good at. It comes from Edward Lear and Lewis Carroll, you know, who's a mathematician, Charles Dodgson. And now what's interesting is the universe turns out to be more like Charles Dodgson, Lewis Carroll, than we could ever possibly imagine.
I think in the end we'll find out it's more like Monty Python than...
Well, I'm glad you got to that.
I didn't want to...
Far be it from me to confess right now.
Exactly right.
But we do have God on stage on Broadway, don't we?
You do indeed, with the voice of John Cleese.
I think that's the first time God has actually appeared on Broadway. He's near in Fiddler.
Well, not since the Green Pastures, right, yes.
This show, difficult thing to crack, I guess, just in terms of translating the movie to the stage show, because you can't just run the screenplay through the typewriter. And I noticed that some of the beloved bits from the movie didn't make it. Any particular ones that didn't make it, and why didn't they make it? I guess the spanking scene, which people love from the movie, is not in the.
Yes, I thought that was the first. I always said on stage that the certainty one would be we had a song called "A Spanking Tonight," and that would absolutely be a Broadway number. You know, absolutely certainty. And neither Mike nor Casey Nicolau, the choreographer, would ever buy it. They didn't like it at all. They didn't think it was funny. The scene was funny, and so we made 3 different songs for it, and we could never sell it to them. Never sell it to them. So and it's interesting when having great collaborators is they force you into different areas, and so we get that wonderful outing scene of Lancelot, which I really love. It turns out that Lancelot
he likes
really
to sing
great.
and dance a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
as Peter Allen.
Exactly, becomes a Peter Allen number, and I just love that because it's so unexpected.
Yeah.
And that's what's great is giving people the unexpected and just shocking them and just watching them. You know, we've broken the seats in the theatre. They've had to replace them because of the laughter. They've been rocking out of their seats. We've had to have the engineers replaced and screw in the seats harder.
God, I thought the Schuberts kept their theaters in good shape, but
there's
that restoration, that $1.25 restoration fee is going to have to be increased because of Spamalot. Interesting that you should say the unexpected, because, as we said earlier, a lot of people are going into the show knowing the movie so well. So I guess you've got to give them bits that they don't realize is coming along.
I think the thing is, you should never know where you're going next, because the whole thing about any drama is what happens next. So that's, to me, the secret, the plot, the book. How do you keep them going to the next piece? It isn't just, you can't just spoof this and that. You've got to have a sort of through line. And I think the simplest thing, almost the most key thing to me, was taking all of the characters we played and making them all one character. So all the characters I played are one character. All the characters that John played are one character, and all the characters Michael played. So there's a through line of the same person, rather than lots of different characters coming on stage.
A good Broadway show really is shown by its transitions that are quite wonderful, which Mike Nichols, did he bring those to the table? In the theatrical way, the show moves from one scene to another.
Well, Mike, and the real sort of wonderful unsung genius was Casey Nicolau.
Yeah,
his
terrific
first Broadway
choreographer.
show.
Discovery to us. He's
Unbelievable, and the best. He was actually in Seussical.
Yeah.
But he's just, his spirit and he just makes the cast so happy, and he just leads them and gives them this enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And he's wonderful. I mean, Mike and I just adore him.
Very witty choreography as well.
Very witty choreographer, very Python.
Yeah.
You know, he gets it completely, you know, and he just puts jokes on the stage in the dance, which is great.
Now, I was struck, having seen the show in Chicago and then having seen it here, I was actually struck by the construction of the show. And some of the critics today, even those who liked it, said it's essentially, you know, sketch review, spoof after spoof. But there's a more complicated structure there than maybe they're not picking up on, that you seem to spend a great deal of time trying to lay out.
I think the thing is, you should never notice it. That's the point. And if you only see it once, maybe you don't notice it, and maybe it just appears. But in Act 2, I worked 3 rewrites during the 6-week rehearsal period. I'd go overnight and come back in and shuffle it about. And that's a series of cards. You just play that, and they don't expect where it goes. But it also leads you through. The wonderful trick we play on them is that actually, ultimately, we are a Broadway show.
Yes.
And what we do in with the theatre, we suspend our disbelief. And then when the audience, the cast tells you, no, 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 this is a play, it's a trick we play on the audience. You know, say, oh, yeah, they played a trick on us. So I like those moves, and I think that there is a lot more artifice in it than
Then you would notice the first time around.
Hopefully you never notice it, because that's the point of artifice. The motto of the footlights at Cambridge was ars escolari artem, which is the art is in concealing the art, which I like a lot.
Do you think if you had stayed working on the Seussical, it would still be running today on Broadway?
Well,
Since it was you were the original book writer on it, I think.
And I love working with Lynn and Stephen, and I was supposed to write the book, and I didn't, because Garth Dravinsky was taken off to Canada, and where he became Bialystok and Bloom and Prisoners of Love, and they sort of wanted to do it, and they went off in a different direction. But I did play their first Cat in the Hat, you know, at the tryouts.
I remember.
And I loved the project very much. I regret that I didn't. But you can't force yourself on people's company. You say, look, you really need me to do the book.
No.
You know, I felt that Garth's instinct to produce something insane, you know, was a good move to come to a Python to do that.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so too. I mean, I'm sure that Lynn and Steve are looking at Spamalot now and thinking, why didn't
Well, they sent me a
get him to do
very
the book?
nice email. They're very sweet. And you know what they did was they constructed the most perfect oratorio. If you sing that piece, it's just perfect and plays like that. And they never really cracked the theatricality of bringing Seuss to the stage, which is, he's anarchy, he's madness, and he's all sorts of other things which you need to let loose.
Yeah, a little edge that he has seemed to have been missing from that show, which maybe you would have tried to bring
That was
into
what
it.
I really wanted to do, because I love things like Oh, What a Lovely War. I wanted to have the theatre full of green goop and all. You know, you need that kid's circusy, kind of Cirque du Soleil feeling about the whole thing.
But we have 3 minutes left, and why
sorry.
dwell on the poor,
Well, no, what I
sad
mentioned, now that you've got a big
I
success,
love,
you've enjoyed actually the process of writing a book for a show, and are there other shows that you would like to do? Do you consider yourself now a book writer?
I think I learned more from Seussical by it not working than
Really?
you
That's
could
interesting.
possibly. I think you learn more from failures than you do from success. From success, you just think you're so great. Hey, that's all I did, you know. So I never plan ahead. I finish a project and I go away and I go, now what do I want to do? I don't like to be employed. I don't read scripts. I don't want to be in other people's things. I just sit down and I think, now what interests me for the next couple of years of my life? Because that's the diminishing time you have, you know. Why waste your time doing other people's things? So I'll just listen to see what I want to do and what might need doing and what might be a good idea.
So you're in that stage now of listening and ruminating?
Next week, I shall just, you know, sit back and go, what happened? You know, what was that about? And sit on a beach for a bit and read a book, and then sort of I get bored if I don't work on something. So I'll go back to my little room and I'll start writing
You read
something.
a lot. On the internet, I found your list of recommended readings, and it was fabulous.
Well, I do. It's what I do
Yeah.
in my life. I don't read newspapers and I don't read magazines.
Do you read reviews?
Books. No. No, I don't, because it's too personal. It hurts. And you know, I feel that if you don't read that regularly, why would you just read all about yourself? It's going to make you egotistical or crazy or, you know, it's just not for me. They're not writing to me.
So you've just heard rumors as to your success.
They
this
just,
morning,
I
yeah.
always saw the producers' faces, and they just went, "We've done $20 million, and we did $1 million last night." And you know, okay, well, look at the producers' faces. You know, that's fine.
Then you'll walk to your mailbox in Los Angeles in a couple of weeks,
Well,
and there'll be this gigantic royalty check.
In Hollywood. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's one thing I learned.
Not to expect it.
Not to expect the money.
Now, are the other Pythons jealous? Or do you think they'll start sort of, well, maybe I should do the musical out of Life of Brian, or they'll try their luck in this field?
I don't know. I mean, they all do different things, so I don't think jealous is the right word. They were really genuinely complimentary and happy for me. And, you know, that's just lovely to get appreciation from your peers and just thanks. And they'll get a check. So, you know.
For doing nothing, right?
Well, it's a terrific show, a great highlight of the new theater season. Congratulations on the success, and thank you for being our guest tonight on Theater Talk. It's been a
My pleasure. Nice to talk to you, too.
Thank you.
Galahad, sweet Galahad, be a knight, it's time to take your vow. If you come with me now, I'll show you how.
So when I panic and think each day I've come to the end of the line, then I say the fear hasn't licked me yet, and keep telling myself I'm the bravest individual I have ever met.
So, Michael, Spamalot, how big a hit is it?
Well, we just heard Eric Idle say that he saw his producers on opening night running around saying we've done $1 million by midnight. And in fact, the reports that we got the day after Spamalot opened was that they sold about close to $1 million worth of tickets. It's a $20 million advance, which is $5 million more than what the producers had when it opened on Broadway. So, you know, Spamalot is indisputably the big hit of the season. I'm beginning, though, to detect a kind of, little Spamalot backlash, which I think comes from people who are envious of its success. People are saying, well, you know, that New York Times Ben Brantley review was not as enthusiastic for Spamalot as it was for the producers. I actually think at this point Spamalot could conceivably run longer than the producers and indeed make more money than the producers, because unlike the producers, Spamalot is not dependent on stars.
You don't think it is?
As good as Hank Azaria and David Hyde Pierce and Tim Curry are. Any one of them could easily be replaced by some cast members from Saturday Night Live during the summer, or some second banana on a popular sitcom could come in for 6 months.
Harder to find another Sarah Ramirez. She's a real find in that show. But you know, Sarah Ramirez is great, but she's not selling out the show. The show's not selling out because of Sarah Ramirez. But I don't think you're going to see what happened with the producers, where it became so closely identified with Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane. When you remove them, the show got a little weak. And indeed, the producers hasn't sold out in a long time. In fact, since Matthew and Nathan were in the show. So I think Spamalot is a kind of show that could go on and on and on and on and make lots of money for the very charming Eric Idle. That's right, and so many others who kicked their money into it.
Yeah.
So now the big story this week was the saga of Christina Applegate, in which you weighed in your column rather heavily.
Poor little Christina Applegate, the I guess, well, we can't really call her yet the former star of Sweet Charity, because she's still in there fighting for her life. Christina Applegate broke her foot in Chicago a couple of weeks ago in Sweet Charity, and right away Barry Weissler, with all the tact for which he's famous, announced that he was replacing her with Charlotte Demboise, her standby.
Yeah, well, no, but it wasn't her standby in Chicago. It was a woman that the Charlotte Demboise, who had been rehearsing in New York, who suddenly was announced as her Broadway understudy and flown in all ready to go with the part.
Yeah, well, you're being too cynical here. Charlotte Demboise was always Christina Applegate's standby, always.
Okay.
Christina Applegate did break her foot. Now, I know, you know, you'd like to think ill of the producers and they somehow cooked this up, but it's not true. She did indeed break her foot.
Right. She fell off a lamppost.
And the problem was that Barry Weissler rushed to announce that he was replacing poor little Christina Applegate with Charlotte Demboise. Christina Applegate, however, doesn't want to be replaced. She has spent a year getting ready for this big Broadway debut. And she believes that with physical therapy and doctors' help, that she's going to be on the mend and ready to go in time to dance her way onto Broadway in Sweet Charity in April at the Al Hirschfeld Theater. It was interesting, this sort of counter, this public relations campaign that she mounted to counter Barry Weissler, who said, you know, sorry to see you go, Christina, but Charlotte Demboise is my new star, and she's the most fabulous performer I've ever seen in my life. So long, Christina. Christina Applegate, you know, her press people were on the phone to those of us who cover this sort of thing, and they were saying she's not down for the count yet.
Good for her, yeah.
She's staying with the show in Boston. She's going to be at the rehearsals every day. She's going to learn the show. She's going to be offered crutches or cast or out of her wheelchair, whatever she's in, and she's going to be opening on Broadway. So Barry Weissler then had to sort of backtrack a little bit and say, well, we'll see if she can pull it out. The fact of the matter is, I think the producers of the show are pretty sure that Christina Applegate's not going to be on the mend in time, and that Charlotte Demboise will indeed open the show. But Christina Applegate has a contract with them, and they can't push her out right away without fear of some sort of possible legal problems. But at the end of the day, if the performer cannot perform the choreography or the show as written, the producer is certainly not required to put the performer on the stage. Now, I think what's happening is that they're making the choreography even more difficult. So Christina, even if she's healed, will never be able to perform it.
And that's a speculation on your part, which we certainly aren't saying here on Theater Talk.
See, Barry's there with Wayne Slento saying, now, make her do 2 somersaults in the air.
No.
But it is interesting, though, that Christina Applegate broke her foot, and this is for the old Broadway historians out there. She broke her foot in the exact same way that Tommy Toon broke his foot on a show called Busker Alley that the Weisslers also produced. And Tommy was on a lamppost, and he jumped off the lamppost and cracked his foot. Christina was on a lamppost. She jumped off that lamppost and broke her foot.
And the fact that they were both shows getting terrible word of mouth out of town is
And the Weisslers were able to shut Busker Alley down then. I think they're going to bring Sweet Charity in. But I think, you know, knowing the kind of the budgeting that the Weisslers do on their shows, I think that was the same lamppost, actually, in Busker Alley that they said.
No, this is not the opinion of the producers of Theater Talk.
And somebody I know said is that famous Weissler grease that they just put on that lamppost when they want to lose somebody from the show.
Okay.
So it's an amusing story, which, you know, I have to hand it to Christina Applegate, who, frankly, we've been open about this. We didn't think was very good in the rehearsal that we saw of Sweet Charity.
Well,
I have a bet with Barry Weissler that he was going to have to replace her. I didn't know he would have to take a lead pipe to her foot to do it.
But Christina, you go, girl. You're going to be in that show. Heel.
Look Look after that other foot, Christina.
That's right.
Don't walk down any dark alleys.
See you next time on Theater Talk. Here's a little more Spamalot.